politics. It's a serious business, and as such, if you want to become a politician, you need to have at least enough brain cells to understand what you're voting on. Even someone like Donald Trump, for whom the word imbecile was invented, has at least some awareness about the state of America right now. And this brings me to our boy, our man, Fidias. Now, if you don't know or don't remember who this fine individual is, Fidias Panayotou is a YouTuber who initially blew up by being an era clone and making challenge videos like I survived 7 days on an island with only a knife, I survived 5 days with no sleep, and I shook the top 100 YouTubers' hands. He also did more controversial stuff like going to the poorest country in the world and just doing a bunch of poverty tourism, being like, "Whoa guys, do you see that tent over there in which that guy is shitting? Can you believe people live like this?" And he also tried to travel across Japan by not paying transport fees and trying to stay in hotels for free. And last year he got elected as a member of the European Parliament, promising to fight for free speech and democracy. But as you're about to see, he's fighting for something else. That being the title for the biggest joke in politics since Marjorie the Jew-owned space lasers caused the California fires Taylor Green. Now, even though Fidias has promoted some good ideas and helps educate people online about how the European Parliament works, he has also pushed a lot of misinformation and biased narratives, specifically regarding the war in Ukraine. Now, Fidias' stance on this issue, at least the way he wants to present it to his viewers, is that the EU should stop sending weapons to Ukraine and instead pursue a path towards peace.
Today we're going to vote if the EU countries should keep sending weapons and money to Ukraine. And I decided to vote against. The reason is not because I'm against the people of Ukraine, but I'm against the escalation of war and the use of violence. But for peace to happen, I believe not only the EU and countries like the United States should stop sending weapons to Ukraine, but also the countries supporting Russia should stop sending them weapons. We will never achieve peace through war. I believe to end this conflict, diplomacy and peace talk between Russia and Ukraine is the only way.
Now, I want peace as much as the next guy. I do want the war to end as soon as possible. But the question that Fidias chooses not to answer here is on whose terms should the peace be? The democracy that is being attacked or the fascist dictatorship attacking it? As of now, the current peace plan from Putin is for Ukraine to recognize the occupied territories as belonging to Russia, withdraw from applying to NATO, and all sanctions being lifted. So basically, Putin gets to rape Ukraine, take 25% of its land, Ukraine doesn't get any means of protection, allowing Putin once again to return in the future, rape the country once again, maybe fully take over it, and potentially invade other post-Soviet countries. Now, I'm no expert in politics, although I have done several politics courses in uni, but when an enemy is attacking you and threatens to destroy everything you ever built and loved, you do not respond by giving them what they want. That's called appeasement. It didn't work in 1938, it sure as hell isn't gonna work in 2025. Putin has already made it more than obvious that he doesn't see Ukraine as a legitimate country, even saying in an essay published before the war that Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians were all one people. He even said back in 2005 that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. Now, I would be willing to give Fidias the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe he had no idea about Putin's fascist intentions and just wants peace because he cares about Europe's safety. Okay, fair enough. But as you're about to see in the next video, he again promotes a narrative that isn't exactly accurate and just makes him seem more malicious.
There is a crucial aspect on the war in Ukraine that almost nobody's talking about, and that is the actual will of the Ukrainian people. First, I must state that I'm against the Russian invasion in Ukraine. Having said that, I also feel the need to acknowledge that before the war, Ukraine was deeply divided into two groups. In the northern half of the country, the people were mostly Ukrainian-speaking, pro-Western, whereas in the southern half, they were mostly Russian-speaking, pro-Russian. You can clearly see the divide in the election result over the past couple of decades, where each one of these groups, the pro-Western and the pro-Russian, was represented by different political parties and different presidential candidates.
Okay, this is a bad argument because he's conflating pro-Russian sentiment in Ukraine with support for the country being invaded. The reality is that the pro-Russian parties and voters simply wanted closer economic and cultural ties with Russia. For example, doing more business with Russia as opposed to joining the European Union. But they were not willing to support an outright invasion and destruction of the country. In fact, according to a poll done by the European Leadership Network in March 2022, 82% of ethnic Russians in Ukraine did not believe that any part of the country was rightfully part of Russia. 88% of the Russians also agreed with the statement that despite our differences, there is more that unites ethnic Russians living in Ukraine and Ukrainians than divides us. Even the leading pro-Russian party, which is now banned and has been replaced by a more pro-Ukraine variation of it, came out with a video statement condemning the invasion.
Наша партия осуждает агрессию российской армии против нашей страны. Наши люди, наши члены партии массово записываются, являются членами территориальной обороны. Мы помогаем людям, пострадавшим от этой агрессии. Мы участвуем в проведении мирных коридоров. Мы помогаем гуманитарную помощь. Мы делаем все, чтобы помочь людям в это страшное время и будем защищать Ukraine.
Now, something else very important that I should point out is that he's using Ukraine election maps from before 2014. If you look at the map of the most recent elections in which Zelensky won, you will see that nearly every region of the country, both Ukrainian-speaking and Russian-speaking, except this western region of Lviv, voted for Zelensky. Now, again, I could give Fidias the minusculest bit of the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe he didn't go on the internet and read about this, although as a politician he probably should. But then I saw a couple more videos and I realized, holy shit, yeah, this guy is definitely Putin's sleeper agent in the European Parliament.
In Ukraine, there are people that they are a lot more pro-Russian, closest to the Donbas regions, those regions that Putin invaded, and also did a lot of, if we let's say make referendum to a country, to these Donbas regions, Mariupol and all these things, probably they will like that to be under Russia more than to be under Ukraine.
So here he brings up a city called Mariupol, whose citizens he claims are happy to be occupied by Russians. And to be fair, it is a beautiful city. I mean, just look at all these amazing sights. I would love to visit it someday. Except these photographs are from before the war. Here's what the city looks like now. It's not a pretty sight, especially when you consider that 10,000 people here were killed by Russians.
Probably they will like to be under Russia.
This was the point where I went from thinking that this guy was just a retard to realizing that he's an outright malicious retard. In one of his videos where he talks about how politicians should listen to other opinions, he quotes Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov saying that European politicians are not willing to speak to their Russian counterparts, obviously implying that Europe should listen to Russia's demands on the Ukraine war.
The left is cancelling the far right and they don't want to talk to them. And the far right is not talking either with the left. Or as another example, take these words of Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister.
Europeans are running away when they see me during the last G20 meeting. It was ridiculous.
If we run away from the people that we disagree with, how can we solve anything?
Well, that's a great preservation tactic, about as great as going to a Muslim neighborhood and burning the Quran. Hey Fidias, let me have a heart-to-heart with you here. They don't know you like that, little bro. The Russians don't care about you like that, little bro. They only want you as your mouthpiece. They will bomb Strasbourg, where you work, in a heartbeat if it was convenient for them. On December 19th, Fidias announced that he was going to go to Romania to interview Andrew Tate. Now you would think, okay, that sounds interesting. Is he going to debate him like Piers Morgan did? Is he going to ask him hard-hitting questions about his sex trafficking, rape, pedophilia case? Well, if you think so, well, you're wrong. You're just wrong. He did neither of these. His entire time with Andrew Tate was just them talking about various topics, mostly outright agreeing with what he's saying.
What America will do is say, you can say anything you want, but you'll say things they don't like, and they'll get you on another crime. So you'll still go to jail. They'll catch you on something else.
Like they did with you.
Well, like they did with me, like they did with Trump. Like if you tell too much truth, they'll come with some other unrelated crime. They'll make it up. And then, in fact, they choose the worst crime, like they did with me, to put it all over the media to make everyone hate you.
It's very interesting. Can you talk about, because I heard you talking about this in the one of the previous interviews, like when they label you with rapism,
Yep.
it's the end. Like you lost.
Well, that's right.
Can you say I'm not a rapist?
They don't care.
It's like, they don't care.
So right here, Fidias is openly endorsing the idea that the reason Andrew Tate was charged with sex trafficking is because the evil Zionist gay cabal is scared of him speaking the truth. Mind you, there's multiple pieces of evidence which prove that Andrew Tate is guilty of sex trafficking women, including minors. It's really hard to believe that a 24-year-old man whose salary is being paid for by the European taxpayer is openly defending a pedophile sex trafficker and subscribing to his delusional ideas. I don't want to support this guy getting cancelled and being kicked out of the European Parliament because I believe in freedom of speech, but I want at least an investigation into this guy's hard drive, because God knows what kind of satanic shit is on there. Now, Fidias justifies him interviewing Andrew Tate by saying that he wants to establish dialogue with the other side because he just loves freedom of speech.
A lot of the people are against to go because he is very controversial and seems to be racist and under investigation for rape and many other horrible things. But you know, our philosophy is to talk to anybody in the world, to hear their story. Doesn't mean you agree or disagree. Even to criminals that they kill people, I'm open to talk and hear their story.
Now, I'm not against having a dialogue with someone you don't agree with, but when you watch footage of Fidias interacting with Andrew and his brother Tristan, he comes across more like a fan willingly going along with what his idols are saying and doing, rather than a politician who is supposed to have a backbone. One minute he's acknowledging that Andrew Tate is under investigation for rape and has some racist beliefs, and the next minute he and the Tate brothers are sitting beside each other having a consensus on the war in Ukraine and the Prime Minister of Hungary, probably after group raping a 15-year-old the Tates got chained up in their basement.
Most people don't know this, and this is a Romanian issue, and as a man who lives in Romania with Romanian children, I am tied to this country, and I do care about Romanian issues. I really do. In the pro-Western part that you highlighted on the map, maybe you do not know this, there are some towns and villages, some relatively small ones, not quite cities, but some small towns and villages that speak the Romanian language. The people are ethnic Romanians who speak Romanian, who dress in a Romanian manner, and have their Romanian traditions. Has Ukraine learned its lesson? Because just recently, since the invasion started, in the last year or so, the Zelensky regime is cracking down on Romanians, banning the Romanian language in their schools, banning Romanians from putting Romanian-speaking people into the parliament, and banning their cultural traditions, banning their cultural dress, and forcing them to assimilate with the Ukrainian population. Do you think this is okay? Because Romanians, we're in the European Union, the Romanian country, and we have people tied to this country by blood and ethnicity over there in Ukraine who are getting fucked by the pro-European regime. How pro-European is
Why
this?
nobody's talking about this, European Union?
It's not discrimination. Ukraine has its own language and culture that it wishes to preserve and educate new citizens. It's like being mad that the Dutch government is forcing Turkish kids to speak Dutch in schools, as if they have a national language that they want to keep around so that their society can be kept together. By the way, Andrew Tate recently announced that he was going to launch a party to participate in the next UK election, and one of the party's tenets is restoring British culture and identity, with policy proposals like ensure every street in Britain feels British, with English signage, flags, and traditional architecture. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If you believe that Russian speakers in Ukraine are oppressed and should be allowed to speak Russian, then surely you would allow Pakistanis who live in the UK to speak Urdu. I mean, clearly this guy is a grifter. He used to advocate for Britain becoming a Muslim country, and now he's saying that he wants to protect Britain's national identity. And seeing Fidias willingly engage with these sex trafficking, pedophilic, volatile lobotomites and not provide any pushback, all the while again his salary is being paid for by the European taxpayer, is both incredibly hilarious and incredibly depressing. It's also interesting that Fidias is acting so concerned about free speech, while sitting beside the man who was threatening to sue an activist against grooming gangs after she called him out for being a sex trafficker and groomer. Honestly, at this rate, Fidias is going to be traveling to Belarus to get lectures from dictator Lukashenko about free speech. But anyway guys, that is the end of this very epic commentary video. Thank you all so much for watching and for all of your support. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, turn notifications on. Please comment because it really helps me out in the algorithm. Also, join my Discord server and follow me on the cesspit known as Twitter. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.
Back to the bone. Wait, these niggas watching. I swear to God, they be my clones. Switching my hoes like my flows. Switching my friends like my clothes. Keep on shooting.